Okay, hi everyone. It's Sunday morning at 10:39, 10:40, and as you might be aware, I'm not getting an awful lot of time to film, so I thought I'd film the process as I'm going along. If it works out, then I can maybe film it into a tutorial. I get visitors along the way. I thought I'd show you a few of the bits and pieces that I've been doing recently, what I have been getting chance to do. So this is my craft room. I've tried to have a little bit of a tidy up, but you just have to take me as I am, I'm afraid. So the plan today, what I'm going to do, I have got a window open. It's absolutely boiling in here, so I'm sorry if you can hear the road. We live on a road. If it gets too noisy, I will close it. But what I was planning to do, I made this some time ago, a clear top boxy pouch, but I forgot to write down all the measurements and how I did it. So today I'm going to try and make another one of these. So I've cut everything out and I've already interfaced it, so I'm just going to sew that this morning to see if it works and try and write a few notes, and if it works out okay, and if it does, then I will film it into a proper tutorial. But I thought you might like to just share some sewing time with me. So that's the box that I'm doing. So a few things that you might have seen appear lately. It was a long time coming, but this bag tutorial finally went on. This is called the Tairn Crossbody Bag, and so there is a video I will link for making this. Now, if it's a bit put together in places, because at the time when I was actually filming this video, my husband was in hospital recovering from sepsis. So I was, while I wasn't sleeping and everything that was going on, I did get this filmed, and it took me a long time to edit because there was a lot going on, but it is on there. So I haven't written a download, for all the pieces that you need to print off in a download. At some point I may get around to doing that, but it is all in the description box, all the pieces that you need underneath. So I love this bag. These are the bags now that I use constantly, all the time when I'm not at work. So that was the blue one that I did. And these main fabrics, these were just feature fabrics. These were from Timeless Treasures. This one was a calf facet fabric. These linen look ones I know everybody's liked, and I've started using more. These were from aemarket.com, and it's called Linen Look. Excuse me. I think it's called Linen Look upholstery fabric, or something like that. Linen Look fabric, and it's 100% polyester, so you do have to be careful with your iron, but it does look fabulous, and it comes in some fabulous colours, and I'm going to be using this quite a bit more. I will link the shop down below. You should see, if you follow them, if you want to follow them on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, what have you, these should pop up on there. So that's the two bags. So you've got a video for those two bags, and then the other video that's just gone on recently, I wanted to do something that was very simple for an absolute beginner. So I did these little pouches. Now there is a possibility myself and Doris might see if we could do a Christmas craft fair somewhere, be on a Christmas craft fair somewhere. So I'm just making a few simple things to put on there. So that's why I thought I'd film this simple tutorial on how to do these. So it's just a little zip top pouch. I can fit my Kindle Paperwhite in there, but you can put anything in there, and they slot quite nicely. They probably slot quite nicely in your handbag. They probably slip quite nicely in here. You could put your glasses and any other bits and pieces that you need to take with you when you go to work. So, and I've been doing embroidery on the front of them. So I like to use, even though on my machine, this is my embroidery machine here, I've got it in cases at the moment as it's as I don't need it. I've been using the 5x7 hoop quite a lot. Now I buy quite a lot of designs from Urban Threads and the Embroidery Library, and you do have to buy, you only buy one size when you're buying from them. Whereas a lot of other places you buy, and you might get 5, 6 sizes for the price. Embroidery Library and Urban Threads you don't, so you have to decide which size you want, and pick the size that you want, or buy them all. Obviously it costs a lot more, and they are slightly pricier than some others, but I do love their designs. So these were some quick, simple designs. So on the video, this one took 5 minutes, this one with a hummingbird. These are just an outline design. I hope you can see that. I'm trying to turn it towards the window for the light. So I did a couple of those, and I've always liked using lace on things. So I put my lace on these. I love this one. My sewing time is for everyone's safety. You know, I think if I bought that in a bigger design, I could put that on a sweatshirt and it would look, or a t-shirt, and it would look fab. So that's quite appropriate for the sewing person in your life. This one, now this was a design that was all done in lots of different colours. So on the actual image for the embroidery, you know, the bird would be in brown and blue or something, and your leaves would be green, and there was quite a few colour changes. Well, I wanted to make it as quick as possible, so I've used the tonal threads, the multicoloured threads, and done the whole image just in those, and then just added the yellow you can see in there at the top of the plant, and I think I put a darker pink in that one as well for certain bits on the bird. And there's a blue one, you can see that one a bit better, you can see the yellow standing out on that one. Again, this is that linen look fabric. It feels really nice as well. It feels quite expensive, and it's not. It's about 60 wide and it's about a tenner a metre, I think. And then I've done some just in, I think this was a Moda fabric, just some plain, no embroidery on, not plain but no embroidery on, just simple, a front and a back. Good way of using up some of your stash. So that was those. So I made quite a few of those. So if you want that video, again, I'll link that down below. That's if you're a beginner, that should help you with putting a zip in. I haven't put a zip tab on the end, so you don't need to learn that straight away if you don't want to. Using size 3 dress zips, which have the extra bit on the end, so you don't get such a bulky corner. So there's a little video on that. I've also been making these tiny little zip pouches. Now this one's got some embroidery on. I got this design free when I bought some others, I think on Embroidery Library, and I got it free in all the sizes. Again, I've done that in a pink tonal thread. Now these are a perfect size little zipper pouch to put your phone charger and your cable in, because that's what I do. I have a little one I made in cotton poplin, and I keep my phone charger in it for when I'm going to work, and a cable. So I thought they might be a nice good little pickup. So great to put in your handbag. You can put your lipstick and your foundation or whatever you take with you makeup wise, just a couple of little bits you might take with you, or it makes a little coin purse. So I've done a couple in with embroidery on, and then I've done these ones that I'd quilted a little bit as well with some fabric I've had sitting around forever, and I managed to get a few out of that. It's like the little love hearts, the little sayings on love me and cutie pie and things, and they're quilted. I quilted those. I just did one piece of fabric, quilted it, and then cut these out individually. I haven't done a tutorial for those, but if you'd like one, just let me know. Just comment down below. So that's a few bits and pieces I've managed to get done in between work. I do work 40 hours a week, and I'm gone obviously more than that because of the travel to and from work, so I don't get a huge lot of sewing time. I'm mostly doing my sewing time at the weekends. With my husband being injured, I thought that this is a bit of a life update as well from what you've heard previously. He's got to have a full knee replacement, and he's got quite a bit more injury to his back than we originally thought. So we originally thought he's had an MRI. He's not having anything done to his back anytime soon. They want to deal with his knee first, but because of all these problems, at the moment he can't walk. He's in an awful lot of pain a lot of the time. But he's trying to get on with life at home. So we are on like one income, so I do have to work the hours that I work and then try and squeeze this in all around it. So that's where we are with that. I've settled to where I work. I do keep looking, but I'm alright where I am. at the moment, and it's as we all know, with the cost of living crisis, whatever you can do to pay the bills, you have to do it. So that's those. That's the bags. Now this was a by Annie pattern. This took forever. I think I've spent a full weekend making this. I think it was called, oh, I didn't get the pattern out, Gear Bag, I think 2.0, and this was the medium size. This is quilted. You quilt a couple of big pieces of fabric first, and then it's done with binding, and I'm using it as my craft bag to take to my sewing club, and there's net pockets in there, one on the front, on the side. This is a big pocket here on the side, and then there's a big flap on the top, a zip flap on the top. I absolutely love this. The idea was I'd make them for Christmas presents, but it did take an awful long time, and it wasn't done from a tutorial, it was done from a written pattern. And then she has a couple of little, with the pattern, you get a code to put into the By Annie's website for, there's a couple of little videos to help you with certain sections, like putting the end panels in and putting the top flap in, putting the zips onto the top flap and sewing them in. So that helped, but there's a lot of binding, and if you don't like binding, it's probably not the pattern for you, but it looks fabulous when it's done, so I am going to make more. The next one should be quicker because I'm not constantly reading a pattern to see how to do it. I'm more of a visual person to learn, hence the tutorials, and I'm more visual, but I had to do this from a written pattern, but it was clear enough to do, and those couple of little videos helped. So that's what I've been getting on with lately. So today, oh, there's this one I just finished yesterday. This is like the other pouches. Sorry. So this is I've used the same size and basically the same as these pouches. So if you're going on the video and making these, I just made this one to make it look a little bit more than just the flat. I've added a pocket on the front and I've done it sideways. It still took the same size zip, doing it sideways than I use in the video, because I used a longer zip in the video. I think it was an 8-inch zip in the video, and it fits this way as well quite well. So I've just made a pocket. I've added a pocket on the front with a little bit of lace in and put a lace tab on the end, and I thought that looked quite pretty, just to take it up another level. If you like these pouches but you want them a little bit more, so this was another, I think another offcut of Timeless Treasures fabric. It doesn't take much to make these. You can make them with 2 fat quarters, one for the lining, one for the outer. So that was that one. Just put those away. So now, today, like I say, the plan is to try and make this. So these are, I've cut out all the pieces. So we are using clear vinyl, so you may want to get, I need to get my Teflon foot out, so I just need to get that, because otherwise your regular foots can stick to plastic, so you need something that's non-slip. I'm being watched here. Odin is just sitting next to me, the cat, watching me, wondering who the heck I'm talking to, because I'm not talking to him. So I have 2 pieces of binding for putting along the top zip, a couple of tabs for putting at the zip ends. I've already prepared them, and then I'm doing this in the pink, this pink and this teal from some fat quarters I bought in a stack from I think it was the NEC show. It was either that or Harrogate, I can't remember, probably Harrogate actually. And I've been meaning to use some of them for ages. I've put cotton woven interfacing on the back of all of these pieces. I didn't want any wadding or foam in them, and I wasn't bothered about structure. This is the bag I now keep all my Guttermans in. They just chuck them in there, and you can obviously I can see them through the top. I can also fit the little 2 cases of bobbins in there as well, so it is quite useful. So I did make this. When I made this one, I was cutting out for doing something else in a different way. So I have got 2 seams down the side, which I'm trying to not have these seams here this time, to have the seams along this bit instead, or along the bottom. I think it's along the sides. I'll see how I get on anyway. So that's the plan. So I hope you enjoy this video, having a bit of a sew along with me. Okay, there's another one I did, another 5x7 design of a dragon. Got that from Urban Threads. This one was the same again as the other little pouches, except I just did it slightly longer and boxed the corners at the top and the bottom to add 2 tabs in as well. I love that dragon face. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that, but it was just a practice trial run, so I could maybe put, if I wanted to on another one, put D-rings and a crossbody strap in it as well, or a little strap. Right, so first thing I need to do so let me just get my Teflon foot first. To get, I knew there was something I hadn't done. I need to get a zip. So I'm going to use a size 5 zipper on a roll for this. I found something appropriate. Now I can use pink and white. I've got the white. I don't think that's long enough. Right, so rose gold, pink and rose gold, or white and silver. I think I might use the pink one. So I don't use my good scissors for cutting a zipper on a roll. So I'm just going to cut this slightly longer, a couple of inches longer than the actual vinyl, because it's easier a lot of the time to do it when they're overhanging the edges. Okay. And I need a zip pull. These big rose gold ones. Zip pulls. Okay, let's get that on. So I'm pushing one side, pushing the other. There we go. That's zip pull on. And that is a little bit longer. Okay. So I'm just going to run a few stitches along each end first so I don't pull my zip puller. That done. Right, so the first thing I want to do really is I need to put, I think, the binding, where's my bag? I'm going to put the binding on the edge sides of the zip and then sew the vinyl to the zip. That's what I've done. So there's 2 lines of top stitch going along here, or 2 lines of stitching. So from what I can see, I've stitched it on with this outside line and then top stitched the inside line. Okay, so I'm going to use, I've got some 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Cut my vinyl out, I traced it on, I put a piece of white paper behind it so I could see it, and then I traced it on with a marker pen. I drew it on with a marker pen and then cut that out. Okay, so what have you been making lately? Do you like box pouches? Post down in the comments down below what you've been making, or any suggestions, any hints or tips that'll make mine better. I'm always open to suggestions. Everybody does, I know everybody does things differently. So I'm going to, right, so I've put tape along the top edge and now I'm going to open up my binding. I've just folded it into 4. And then stick that raw edge to raw edge along the edge. Must have had this tape a while, it's not very sticky anymore. Okay, so then once it's stuck on like that, fold it over the top, folded it over the top, fold the other bit of binding in, and then fold it down that side. So I'm just going to put another piece of tape on this side. Okay, so that's folded into the centre, and then fold that and stick that down. Now you could just fold this over the top. You could just put the folded piece of fabric with the vinyl in between if you wanted to. Clip it on and sew it on, but I want to do it this way. I want to make sure it's straight and it's not going to move when I sew it. So let me try this out. So what I've done, I'm going to use a 4mm top stitch. So I don't need my, yes I will, I'm going to put the Teflon coat on now, because part of it may run across the edge of the vinyl. I'm just going to sew it in at about 1/8 of an inch. stitch. I'll just snip off those ends. Okay, so there we go. That's that stitched on. So that's worked out okay, so I'm just going to do the other one as well. Knocking my table. Okay, so just repeat that with this one. When you trace onto vinyl using your marker pen and your ruler, just remember when you're cutting out, if your marker pen like mine was quite thick, you want to cut to the inside of that line, because that's where the measurement is to, not the outside, because obviously you've got the width of the nib of the pen. So if you cut to the inside, then that takes mostly takes the marker pen off as well, so you're not left with that on. Same when you go with tracing any pattern. If you're tracing it with a thick marker pen, cut to the inside. I always cut to the inside of the line, because if you cut to the outside, you've got that little bit of extra width, which on both sides could probably add on another 1/8 of an inch, or maybe even another 1/4 of an inch, depending on how thick your pen is. Thought this might be a nice little video for you to sit and watch while you're crafting yourselves. Crafting along with me. I have started going to a sewing club with Doris in Wigan, a new sewing club. We go once a month on the first Saturday of the month. I don't know if that I think I've completed one of them pouches while I've been there. I think I went one week and took a blouse, a flowery here. I took this with me. I was making a blouse in this, only I ended up cutting out 2 backs and not a front, so I couldn't finish it. So just, you know, it was more about the chatting for 5 hours than actually doing any sewing. But it's a nice way to meet like-minded people. I do miss the social side of where I worked before, of meeting all the customers and chatting about what they're making and what you're doing. Okay, 4mm stitch, about 1/8 of an inch in. Aside. So the next thing to do is we now need to sew the zip. This is why you need your zip to be a bit longer. Take it over the end. So now you need to line these up on the zipper. And I'm going to sew these on there like that. You know, just trying to decide how I'm going to do it. I think I'll just find the centre on my zip and mark that. Just get a pen. Okay, so that's going to line up there. So I think what I'm going to do is put tape across the back of here. Okay, now I can just see my line. So I'm just going to line that up there slightly. Just tap that in a little. And then make sure the zip is just slightly back from the edge. So you can't, so it doesn't peek out from behind the binding. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch that on first, and it doesn't move while I do when I do the other one. So again, I'm just going to sew another top stitch line to hold that in place. Okay, so that's that stitched on. Now I am using a white thread. Obviously, if you do that in a coordinating thread, it'll disappear in a bit more. So if you're worried about not getting straight lines, mine aren't too bad. So I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. Tape's a bit dry. Tape keeps coming off. could put your iron on this normally and try and heat set it, but I don't want to because of the vinyl. I don't want to take the risk of melting it. Right, try again. So there we go. So that's the top section all sewn. Okay, so now what we need to do is attach the fabric either side to this. So we're going to take our zipper panel right side up, take one of our main fabrics right side down. Mine's an all over pattern, so I've not got to worry about which direction it's going. Now you could take this on again, but this time I think I'm just going to use clips. Just open this. I'll just use a few clips to hold this in place. So right sides together. Now I'm doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to find the easiest way to do this. I'm going to sew the outer first and then I'll sew the lining piece. Just move them down a little bit. So I'm going to sew it in a 1/4 inch for the outer and then I'm going to add the lining and then I'll sew that at a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put it back down to now sewing onto vinyl. I'm still going to keep my stitch length longer, so I think I'll do that at 3mm. I normally do 2.4, so I'll do that at 3 because I don't want it to pull off. So I'll just stitch this at a 1/4. I'm sewing this with vinyl side down. I probably should have done it with vinyl side up, really, because otherwise it's sticking a little bit to my sewing machine bed. And I should have the vinyl under the Teflon foot, would have been easier. So I'll do that on the other side. Okay. So then I'm going to take my lining and then clip this on. So I've got this all right side up. So I've got this panel right side up. You've got your vinyl and the zipper right side down. And then lining right side down on top of that. And clip that on. Doesn't matter which way you sew this up, because the vinyl's sandwiched in between. time back stitching on these. It is my habit to, even when you don't really need to. So I'm sewing at 1/2 inch now. I do like quite a large seam allowance. So there we go, lining, that fold to the back. Press your seams. I want to press this so it's just slightly higher than the lining so that the lining doesn't poke up from behind. So I'm going to sew this side first and then I'll top stitch both at the same time. So I'm just going to rinse and repeat, so to speak, on this one. So turn it over and sew this vinyl side up. So I've got this right side up, the outer right side up, the vinyl right side down. Okay, 1/4 inch. Oh, back up. No, 3. That's all right. 3 mil. Just back stitch a bit. So with the vinyl against my foot, as I've got a Teflon non-stick foot, that's not a problem. If you haven't got one, I'd highly recommend investing in one. So lining right side down now. So 1/2 inch. So there we go. So press your seams. I'm just going to press them by hand. I could do with one of those little seam rollers. I might have to invest in one of them in the future. I'm going to press. And now I'm just going to top stitch back down both these 2 edges, but before I do that I'm just going to stretch it out and stick a couple of pins in so it doesn't slip while I'm doing it. Through both layers. It's holding that lining layer back a little bit as well so it doesn't poke above, so you don't see it so much from the vinyl poking above the vinyl. And then I'm going to top stitch again at 4 mil, so I'll put that back up to 4 mil and stitch anywhere from 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, I think I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch. Press the button I shouldn't on here. Now you might find, because you're going through a few layers now, it can sometimes be worth adjusting your tension down a little bit, so it allows a little bit of extra room in your stitch to stitch through. So I've just gone down to -1 on my machine. That can help, especially if you're doing 2 different colours, if you've got a different colour on the other side, so that you don't see, you know, sometimes you can look on the other side when using 2 colours and see a little bit poking through. And if you see that, you might just find it's because you need to just adjust your tension a little bit, because you're going through more layers, so you might need to take your tension down just a touch on those thick layers. Just remember when you're not on them thick layers to put it back up. Test that out. You can always test that theory out on some scrap fabric first. Go. So that's all top stitched. Sorry, it looks a bit dark when I hold it up, but the window's here and I have a big shelving unit there, which does tend to block the light a little bit from that section. But when I've been trying the camera setup, this was the only setup I seem to be able to get where you could see both me and the tables without cutting off my head. I don't get the sun in here till the afternoon, till about 1 or 2 o'clock, and it's only 11:30 at the moment, and then it's baking hot in here in the afternoon, and I have to shut the curtains a lot of the time. Okay, so that's both pieces all together now. Now, before I go any further, I made 2 zip tabs. Now, all I did was fold the sides to the centre. I didn't fold it in half again because that can sometimes add too much bulk. So I put a bit of fusible cotton woven interfacing inside and fused it. Had the fused side facing up towards the side edges, so it'd grab that. If that makes sense, it might not, but if it does, to hold, because I'm only folding the 2 sides in, folding these 2 sides in, they might move about. So if you put your woven interfacing, your fusible interfacing inside with the glue up, when you fuse it, it sticks to those and then they won't come open. Okay. This is all to try and keep the bulk down. So what I'm going to do with those is I think I'll use, I like to glue these together first before I put them on. So I'm using my Fabri-Tac fabric glue and just putting a very small amount so it dries quick. Just to fuse those 2 edges together. You could run some basting stitches along there instead if you wanted to, just to hold the ends together, because when you're sewing sometimes it can slip, it can push it sideways, so you'll have it the top one slightly moved over from the bottom one and it won't be quite lined up. So I do like to use a bit of glue. If you're going to base stitch these together instead, stitch them together instead, start in the middle and then go backwards and forwards, or forwards and backwards, because that way if you stitch the middle first it can't shift it. It's already confused. You could also top stitch these two edges. It's two edges of the fabric as well, if you wanted to. I'm not bothering with that today. I might do that if I do an actual video. And then this is going to sit over the end of the zip, pointing inwards. Now, I need to make sure my zip is on the inside. I might just try stitching that together. Pull my zipper open, but I need to put some stitches just there to hold it together. Okay, so I've just stitched it together there. I'm not going to trim that off yet. And then this will sit over the end, pointing inwards. So raw edge to raw edge. Can sometimes even take a little bit over the edge. And then I can either glue that in place or clip that in place. So I might glue that. So while that's gluing, stick a clip on it. I'll do the same at the other end. Okay, so that should be almost dry. I've only put a tiny bit on. So I'm just going to run a few stitches within the seam allowance over at either end. Didn't like that. It's the problem with these chunkier zips. I can get away with this one before I change it. Turn the speed down. No. No, there we go, that's broken. So 1 second while I change my needle. Sorry, Odie. Now wait you up, lad. I'm using a size 80/12. Okay. I think I'll hand crank it over that. Make sure I don't break another one. I think it was due for changing anyway. Trim all these threads, and then I'm just going to trim the zip at the end now. Now, if you've got longer zip pieces than these, so that's I'll stitch that together. But you can use these if they're a little bit longer. You can fold them in half and use them as your zip tabs as well. Especially when you're putting your zip tabs in the side rather than over the zip, but in the side of something. Okay, so I'm just going to sew along the top and the bottom. Just clip these together. Okay, so I'm just going to sew the outside one at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew, which is 4/8, and then the lining I might sew at 5/8, just so it fits a bit tighter. So just along these two edges. I'm just going to switch back to my regular foot. And go back down. This is just fabric, so I'm going to go back to my 2.4mm stitch length and make sure I switch my tension back down to centre, automatic. You could draw your seam allowances on if you needed to. this side. Tell you what I forgot to do. I needed to leave an opening on this side, and I've forgotten to do that. Right, so I needed to leave a gap here, and I've forgotten to do, so I'll just take a few stitches out, just mark where I want it, so about to hand's width. There. I'm just going to take the stitches out between there. Can't see with my glasses. Okay, so I'm just going to re-stitch over those ends so they don't come undone. So now we've got a gap. Just got to stop for a few minutes. Lunch has just arrived. Doesn't it look fab? Okay, so back to it. So we've stitched down this edge and this edge, left a turning gap in the lining eventually. So now we need to open it up, line everything up. Press our seams open. I'm just finger pressing everything. Okay, so line all these up. So everything's laid up like this, so all the seams line up with the zip, centre of the zip. I've just got to clip those. Okay, so we've got the clips on both ends, so now I'm just going to decide how big our box corners are going to be. So because of the vinyl, we obviously don't want to make them too big. Just get a nice, got a little ruler, pen, okay, so the distance between the vinyl and the bottom is 2 inches, so I think I'll go for maybe 1 3/4. Now we've got a 1/2 inch seam this side, no seam at the bottom, so we'll go, I think maybe 1 1/2 in from that seam line and 1 1/2 down to the bottom. Okay, so your box is there. So it'll be 2 in and then 1 1/2 down because we've got a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I just want to cut those out. So I've cut all them out. I think I'm also going to trim this seam allowance down from where the vinyl's sewn on. These are better for this job. I've got some duckbill scissors so that you're not likely to cut the piece like this top layer here that you don't want to be cutting. Holds it out of the way. All these little squares, rectangles, make good for tabs later on. Now I've done that just because I want to make it easier when I sew these corners. Alright, so I'm just going to sew these two sides together now at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm actually sewing vinyl here, so I can go. I'm going to go up to 3 mil. quite a bulky seam with the zip tabs and the zip and everything as well, so going over that, try and keep no skip stitches using that. So many times, don't know where it goes. That's my bulky zip aid. That's my bulky seam aids disappeared into the ether. Okay, we'll have to compromise. That'll work. Okay, so I've no idea where my bulky seam aid just disappeared to, in the proverbial black hole. Don't know. Okay, so I just folded up a bit of fabric and stuck that under the instead. Okay, so now it's boxing the corners. I'm going to trim that seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch. Let's take a bit of manipulating. Okay, now just making sure everything's straight. I'm doing them both at the same time. Okay, so I've pinned both box corners, pull the box corners into shape together at the same time. I'm going to join them both together. It's a bit more fiddly, but because it's a large size box, it's not as hard to do as it might look. Okay, so you can see both box corners are sewn together. So I'll do the same on the other four corners. So I've pulled, that's the outer one, into shape first. Obviously if you've done box corners before, you know what I'm talking about. Because it's a big box, it makes this a bit easier to do. I wouldn't want to tackle doing this on a smaller one. this doesn't want to cooperate, so I'm just going to check this one looks right before I do any more. Turn it all through and check it. Could have done with slightly bigger turning gap. So that is the corner I've done. And that does look pretty okay. Trying to see if it would be better to do, instead of doing that, do bound corners. Might try French seam in these ones and see how it goes. So to French seam them, you sew them on the outside, then you sew them on the inside. So I think I'm going to unpick that one and do that. So that might be easier. Okay, so this is part of the process when you're practicing for classes, learning what works best. What's the easiest way to do these things? Okay, I think that's all one done. Right. So sew them on the outside first, so you need to make sure you get the lining and the outer fabric as well. Just tuck that up a bit. Might not have left enough room at the side of the vinyl for this, but I could leave it more on the next one. Okay, so I'm just going to sew this at about a scant 1/4 of an inch, so so sew them on the outside first. Check I've caught everything. Yes. And then you turn it this way to the inside. Oh, no, not see. I've not caught that in. This is why it's worth checking. No, still not caught that in, so I'm just going to rip that out. Okay, try again. Make sure all your lining's pulled up. My lining must have been pulling down a little bit. Some work this time. Okay, yes, caught all that this time. Okay, so once you've sewn it on the outside, then you need to sew it, turn it through and sew it on the inside, catching all that seam inside there. So I should be able to sew this at 3/8, and hopefully this will catch all that seam inside. Sure I've caught everything. You can't see the previous base, just slightly there. I can just see the seam allowance just sticking out there a bit, so I'm just going to sew over that piece again a bit further in. To the line I've already sewn. Okay, yep, that's worked. So I'll do that on all the other corners. Just pull out all these threads. Still have such a tiny bit of seam showing there. Okay, so let's do the next one. So all I've got to do now is sew up this internal seam. Now ideally, because you can see through the box, I would sew that so it sits flat. I would sew that up by hand, but for speed today I'm just going to do it on my machine. I might even glue it actually. Okay, so when that dries, that will dry flat. So I could just do to get my little iron in there. And I'm trying to decide whether it's worth putting a stitch line, a top stitch line in from there to give it more shape on the base. I'll just do that and see how that looks. Something's caught. Okay, this thread got caught in the bottom of my machine under the plate. Not quite sure how that happened. Now I would ideally press this. This is only a practice one. That looks okay. Just snip the threads and then I'll show you. Okay, so there we go. Just tilt you up. Okay, so there we go. There's the finished article. That kind of evolved as I went along by sewing the top stitch on these bottom, around the bottom, all the way around the bottom. I've done it on the two ends as well. That's giving it more structure. It's also, if you can see through in there, because it's stitched the line into the outer as well, it's made it look less loose inside. So as you can see, it's now, the lining is now stitched to the outer as well, all the way around, which gives it a little bit more structure. You could, if you wanted to, make a false base to go in that, if you wanted a firmer bottom, but I don't. I'm going to use that, like I said, the blue one that I made before. I put all my wonder clips in, not my wonder clips, so the one I made before, I put all my Gutterman threads in, so that you can see what you've got. Let me just get them out and I can show you. You can put your embroidery threads and things in there as well. Okay, there's just a few to show you. All my Gutterman threads in there. Well, some of them. And the little trays with the bobbins in as well. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, spending a little bit of time sewing with me. And I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.